What's up, y'all? Today I am so very excited to be starting some tomato seeds indoors, and maybe even more so excited to show you exactly how we do it, so hopefully you can get your own big harvest of tomatoes. You know, in general, I'm a real big fan of starting vegetable seeds in containers like these and starting them indoors for the first few weeks or even months. In particular, for those slow growing, long season, warm weather crops, like for tomatoes, it's a really terrific method. I'm back inside. Man, I wanted to film this one outdoors in the garden like all the cool YouTube gardeners, but I just couldn't do it. My seeds were blowing away, my containers were blowing away. It was a whole big mess. Before we get into the actual planting, let me walk you through the varieties that we're going to be planting today. Sweetie tomato from My Gardener, yellow pear tomatoes, Tommy Toad tomatoes, black prince tomatoes, not really tomato, lychee tomatoes, black cherry tomatoes, white cherry tomatoes, Super Sweet 100s, King of Paste Tomatoes San Marzano, Paul Robeson from Baker Creek, and Thorburns Terracotta. Before we hop into equipment, I've got a quick favor to ask. If you can hit that like button real quick, it really helps me out. I definitely appreciate it. All right, let's do this thing. First things first is our growing medium. Now, all this is some decent organic potting mix that I have double sifted to remove some of the larger particulates from. I do that just to increase the germination rate for our tomatoes and the rest of the nightshades. And generally speaking, I don't even do that for things like lettuces and other leafy greens. I almost never use seed starting mix, although you certainly can and you'll probably have even better results. This is just a little bit cheaper. This is also pre-moistened. Basically what we're doing there is just trying to overcome some of the initial resistance to moisture that all dirt has when it's super dry. We're gonna also be adding some water after the actual seeds go into the containers. These are super standard 10 by 20, 72 cell seed trays. And I've got 2 of them, and we're gonna be going through both of them today. Not a lot to say about them. They're tiny, they don't work for that long, but they're pretty good for germination because they very efficiently absorb heat from the bottom via the heat-link seed mat that we're gonna be putting them on. Which brings us to these larger containers, which we won't actually be using today, but I think are worth a quick note. So these are 3.5 inch pots, and these are what we're going to be potting up the seedlings into in a few weeks. So the obvious question you might be asking yourself is, well, why not just plant the seeds directly into this larger container and save the step? I like to plant into the smaller seedling trays, mostly just because it gets slightly better germination. It's hard for those seedling heat mats to really effectively heat all of this soil in a container like this, and I've found that the germination rate is a little poorer. Another good reason is that tomatoes, interesting things that they are, have what are called adventitious roots. And you've probably seen these, right? They look like the little hairs on the stem of a tomato. When a tomato, naturally grown, falls over and lays on the dirt, which a tomato will do if you're not propping it up, right? If you're not trellising it or putting it into a cage. Those adventitious roots, those little hairs on the stem, will actually shoot down new roots. They'll create new roots where the stem, where those nodes come into contact with soil and moisture. We, as gardeners, can use that helpful little adaptation by potting up the plant. Right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that little seedling that was grown in those 72 cell trays, and we're going to move it into this larger 3.5 inch container, but we're going to bury the stem quite deeply because we're actually encouraging those adventitious roots, those little hairs on the stem, to create extra roots, right? So we have just a larger root system and a stronger plant. If you do want to just skip the potting up step, what you can do is just put your soil line, say like 3/4 of the way to the top. And that way, once your seedlings come in and they've got, say, their first set of true leaves or maybe their second set of true leaves, you can actually add additional soil and basically mimic the effect of potting up. Next, we have some very standard 10 by 20 drainless propagation trays. All these are is a container for those seedling cell trays to go into. They're food grade plastic, which is nice, but otherwise they're pretty dead simple. They allow us to bottom water our plants. Instead of using traditional seed labels that I actually have to write out by hand and take forever and sort of create a huge mess and lots of trash, I just use a spreadsheet that I reference on my phone. And this is just pre-populated with the information on where I want each variety or each type of plant to go in that 72 cell tray. All there is to it. I definitely recommend it. And again, I go over kind of how I approach making those spreadsheets in that indoor seed starting video. Oh, and yeah, you can totally use those like plastic cup, like the red Solo cups. Just keep in mind that you're gonna be losing some efficiency. Just one more note. So you're not gonna need it today, but in a few weeks when your seedlings have their first set of true leaves, you're gonna need to feed them. You're gonna need to fertilize them, right? And I think worm castings are about the best way to do that. So if you haven't started yet, make sure you get your worm bin up and running. If you haven't seen it already, I do have a longer form video on all things indoor seed starting that covers not just this equipment that I actually use myself and recommend, but also some alternatives that you might want to look into. Actually, one more thing. Last and most important, we've got a caffeinated beverage. Never start your seeds without coffee. Alrighty, so as I am getting these trays filled up with soil, I just want to share a couple tips that I think are important to keep in mind as you are planting your future tomato garden here. And the first is, know the difference between your determinate and indeterminate tomato varieties. So indeterminate varieties are on average larger, certainly taller, and they produce their crop over time. So rather than giving you one big harvest all at once, or maybe two harvests, depending on the specific determinate variety, you're gonna get a little bit over time, which we really like because in general, it's easier for people who are growing food for themselves, right, to be able to go outside and grab some food and eat it in a couple days instead of getting a giant crop that they have to then preserve all at once. So I think it's just a little bit more practical. Another reason that I really like indeterminate varieties is that the vast majority of cherry tomatoes, which you may have noticed are sort of my my preference and my priority, are indeterminate. Another nice thing about indeterminate is their growing style. So the way that we do our garden, specifically our warm weather garden, right, is that we have these sort of long, thin rows. And then for the tomatoes, we're gonna have a pole on each side, and then we're gonna have a crossbar. And then we're actually gonna trellis the tomatoes up from the ground on a piece of string up to that crossbar in sort of an offset pattern. And the indeterminate varieties, we're going to prune so that it's really just that central stem. And so the way that those indeterminate varieties grow is really well suited for that sort of higher density, high efficiency, vertical growing setup that we like to use. Now, we do grow both determinants and indeterminants, and determinants do have some advantages, right? So for one, sometimes they require slightly less light, which can be beneficial if you're trying to get a little bit of a harvest out of an area that maybe isn't appropriate for those larger plants. They can also be better suited for containers, which is great. There's a part of our garden that I'm planning to do mostly grow bags. So those determinate varieties will do well back there. And practically speaking, some varieties that you want, like those San Marzano paste tomatoes, they're determinate. And we go through an unholy amount of tomato sauce as a family. Secretly, I kind of actually prefer cherry tomato based sauce, which I'm told is somewhat blasphemous, but I'm gonna link you to a really amazing recipe in the description, and you can make the call for yourself. The second tip is to plant extra. So both plant extra seeds in each container and plant extra containers, right? Get extra seedlings, get more plants than you think you're actually gonna put into the garden. At the end of the day, seeds are cheap and they only last for a few years. And generally speaking, each packet of seeds is probably going to contain more than the average home gardener or the average homesteader is going to need for 2 or 3 years. In fact, they're so cheap that I think it is a much better value proposition to focus on growing the healthiest, strongest, most robust seedlings you possibly can, including growing extra seedlings versus trying to optimize around not wasting any seeds. You know, I also recommend that you try new varieties every year. This is our first spring in our current property, and we really don't know what's going to do well. We know that so far we have faced, challenging soil composition, very different weather conditions. The pest pressure here has been significantly more voracious than what we were used to. And the chances are that the tomatoes we've relied on in the past in a very different locality are not going to be the ones that do best here. We're better off experimenting with a wider array of varieties rather than trying to put all of our eggs into one basket, so to speak. The most important aspect of tomato seed starting really is the timing. So you want to start early enough that your plants have plenty of time to reach maturity before the cool weather kicks in at the end of the season. But you don't want to start so early that you have to choose between your seedlings becoming root bound indoors or going outside when it's still too cold. Now, the downside to starting seeds here where I am in mid-February is that some of those slower maturing varieties are going to start running into heat issues when the weather makes it hotter than the surface of the sun here, and they don't like to fertilize at those temperatures. These are just the trade-offs that you have to consider when you decide when to start your seeds. I'm starting these about 2 weeks before the last frost date, which is generally considered a little late. Standard is going to be more like 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost date of the year. We're doing this because here we have pretty long growing seasons, which gives us some flexibility in choosing that date. And while tomatoes, which we're starting today, are generally pretty okay in a sort of semi-dormant state while the weather is still warming up, eggplants and peppers, not so much. They really prefer to be out when the nighttime temperatures have really significantly warmed up. So we're kind of cutting the difference. In fact, many experienced gardeners in our area don't like to transplant their peppers and eggplants out until May. And it's easier for me to start my tomatoes, my eggplants, and my peppers, and a few other related plants at the same time. You know, sue me. I'm a lazy gardener, and I think you probably should be too. That is strong. Wow. Good. I'm looking for these San Marzanos right here. So 2 to 3 seeds per container is actually going to be more than enough. There are, in all likelihood, going to be a couple of cells that don't have any germination just due to natural variance. Not any problem with the cell, not any problem with the planting. It just happens, right? That's probability. Now, luckily, it is very easy to take extra seedlings from those cells that have 2 or 3 seedlings and move them over into any empty ones. So really no need to do more than 2 or 3 seeds per cell. Okay, so what I like to do here is create a shallow little indent in each of the cells I know that I'm about to plant into. So we're doing, as I mentioned, 3 cells for each variety. I've got my San Marzanos here. That's the first set of tomatoes that I'm going to be doing. Looking at column C, rows 1, 2, and 3, and we're just going to put 2 to 3 seeds into each of those wide, shallow indentations. So it can be nice to separate out the seeds a little bit within reason, so that if you do have multiple germinate and you do need to move them over into another container, that their roots are not super intertwined. If you just separate out the cells a little bit, you're going to give yourself a little bit of extra breathing room. Now, once they are in those shallow little indentations that we created, all I'm going to do is very gently pinch some of the soil that's already in the container back over the seeds. Another way to do this, if you have extra moistened soil, just go ahead and take a little handful of it, plop it right on there. I like to just pinch over though. That way I'm not having to do each step multiple times. As I mentioned, I'm planting each variety into a predetermined location by referencing this spreadsheet on my phone that I have already filled out. But if you want to use labels, now would be a good time to do so. These are those super sweet 100s. These are that hybrid. This is really the only hybrid that I am planting this year, I think. These are awesome though, I love them. Again, we are just gently pinching back over the seeds with the soil already in the container. Not pushing down too hard, but making sure that they are covered. Next up are tomato tomatoes. I want to say that I'm really excited about these, but I feel like I can say that about all of them and it kind of loses its oomph, but like, I'm really excited about these. In just a minute here, once I've got all my seeds into place, I'm going to be carrying down these seed trays and putting them on our pre-built indoor seed starting rack. Indoor seed starting racks are super great because they make the whole process dead simple. We've got good airflow, plenty of heat via the seed mats for good germination. We've got plenty of light that we've actually verified is strong enough, all in one location, all hooked up to automatic timers to make it really, really easy. We've got a build guide video on how to do that on the cheap if you're interested in getting set up with something similar. If you are not interested in building an indoor seed starting rack, I think that is totally reasonable. They are very much not necessary. Nice to have, not necessary. What you can do with these seed trays, with your containers, is just put them into a warm location somewhere in your house, or just pick up a $10 seedling heat mat and put it into a convenient location. At the point of germination, your seedlings have come up. If you don't have somewhere to put them inside, your best bet is probably going to be taking the trays or the containers outdoors into the sunlight during the day and then bringing them back inside into that consistently warm location during the night hours, unless you have a structure outside that can trap heat, right? Like a greenhouse or a hoop house, something like that. It is possible to use a south-facing window with really good light for a few weeks, even after germination. But at that point, you might as well just put them outdoors, right? And then bring them inside at night. You're not getting a lot of benefit by putting them in the window, in my opinion. Tomatoes just aren't gonna fruit with window light outside of very special circumstances. And for the record, I've tried to do it multiple times and I've failed multiple times. These suckers just need a lot of energy. Okay, we're headed down to the garage to get these seeds on a heat mat. We should start seeing the first seedlings pop up in 3 to 4 days. Once most cells have germination, it's best to remove the bottom heat. Now, I'm using the app Photone to check my DLI values. For tomatoes, I want about 15 across the whole tray, and I'm finding that my lighting is just a little underpowered in some parts of the tray. To fix that, I'm adjusting my automatic timer so that the lights are on for longer each day. I'm also going to lower the height of the lights so that they're slightly closer to the top of the tray. This step doesn't strictly have to be done until you start seeing seeds germinate, but it's good to be ready for any early germinators.